Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just to let you know, we are recording this webinar, so we'll be able to share it after we've completed. We will also have questions at the end, so there is a control panel on the side, so you can submit questions, and we will get to those towards the end of the session. So my name is Hannah. I'm marketing manager here at PCS, and I am joined today by Nada, who is our editorial product specialist, and we're going to just talk today about how we believe publishers can build the perfect page template. So let's get onto it. So today we will cover what makes a template so important, what we believe the benefits are of using a template, some of the key principles that we see as part of templating, what templating tools there are, and some top tips on how these can be implemented. So first of all, what makes a template so important? Well, beneath just about every publication is a template. And going back to the time where man began to record information as a series of symbols, written material has also required some sort of basic framework. And now with the use of computers and editorial publishing software, templates are being used in businesses, well, worldwide, to create all kinds of publications. So what makes that template so important? Well, firstly, templates help to guide the placement of text and graphics, and that provides a well-establishing starting point from which a publication can be easily created. Secondly, and most importantly, they do set up, they do save a lot of setup time and ensure design consistency, and they really reduce the risk of errors. And templates really harness the processing power of computers to automate production. And this frees up time for designers from the dull and tedious tasks, and gives them a reliable way to begin new projects, and gives them time to focus on those. So some of the benefits of using templates we would see. So the principal function of a template is to facilitate efficient page production while maintaining consistent design. And as more thought goes into the design of a template, it can eventually develop into an intelligent design aid and powerful production tool. And some of the benefits of a great template, there are lots of them, and probably too many to go through right now, but in our opinion they fall into three main categories. So first of all, we have productivity, and this minimizes the stress of manual repetition, formatting and automating routine tasks. And with a standardized template, the variables of complex routine are reduced to a more predictable and productive system. So starting from a template, a large bulk of the work is already being done for you. And then all you have to do is import, arrange and format new content. And that leaves you with lots of time to focus on other tasks, and in turn it increases creativity. And so without a template, you can plan on spending hours of unproductive time on a project. So a third benefit is consistency. The more systematic a template is, the easier it is to use, and the more productive it becomes. So with magazines and newspapers and collections of promotional material, it is desirable and often required to establish a house style, and creates a really coherent reading experience. So it allows those readers to find the material they are looking for without any risk or ambiguity. So a final benefit, and probably the most important for all who are running publishing businesses, is profitability. So print production is costly, which we all know. By standardizing a design and constructing a template, the process becomes much more affordable. And with a well-built template, this allows multiple designers to collaborate on a publication without actually wasting time. So it's easier to manage workflow systems and enforce good production habits. And as you can imagine, a substantial amount of time is invested in making a template perfect. And because errors in it will be endlessly repeated, it is very important to focus on the starting point. And one small change to a template can mean substantial time and money savings. So I'm going to now pass over to my colleague Nada, who can go through some of the core principles and some top tips for those looking to implement templates into their workflow. So over to you, Nada.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Those were some interesting points that you mentioned there. Now let's talk about the key principles that you could follow to be able to enable perfect page layout time after time. Great templates are created through a carefully planned combination of distinct tools and technologies. So like a machine, all the various parts, if you want to see it that way, work so well together that when you're using it, everything seems to be operating like it's from a single intelligence. So to be able to succeed in perfecting your page production, it's very important to understand some of the fundamental principles that support the creation of quality templates. So if we get started with being familiar with your tools, when you're designing a publication that's intended for a one-time use only, the specific tools and methods you use to produce it aren't that important. As long as you get your desired results, you can pretty much get away with a poorly executed layout. Now, however, when you're trying to construct a template, on the other hand, it's very essential that you take a much more strategic approach to the page layout and be able to employ the most effective use of each tool that's available to you. During the template building process, you're going to be frequently challenged and sometimes confused about the right tool or the right strategy to use. But with a deeper understanding of the tools that are available to you, and including the knowledge of their capabilities and also their limitations, you will then be able to make the most informed decision in any given situation that you might face. Always design with a goal in mind. Any experienced page designer out there is going to tell you there's nothing worse than a project without goals. All successful and advanced template design is created in conjunction with a very clearly defined set of objectives. There's no template project that can actually begin without you first defining its design and workflow requirements. And after the specifications have been defined, the overall template design process is going to go a lot smoother without you wasting time and money. Now let's consider a template that's been thrown together with little or no thought. No doubt there's going to be missing elements because there wasn't actually a clear direction given to you or prepared from the beginning. You'll probably end up using the wrong tool in a particular you're probably going to end up using the wrong tool, which will probably be used in a particular solution because your workflow requirements were not previously clarified. And most of all, the template will be poorly organized, it's going to be harder to implement, and almost impossible to be able to manage your templates. You're then going to be left with a template that isn't fully functional and involves a lot of production time. Now that's defeating the very purpose of actually creating and using templates. Now, speed is a priority. Well-built templates are made for speed. They help eliminate the stress of repetitive formatting, and they're able to automate routine tasks as much as possible. When you're constructing your template, always ask yourself, is there a better or a faster way that I can maybe create this? Can I bring this layout together in a fewer steps? And the more and more familiar you become with the toolset that's available to you, you'll be able to discover new and better ways to be able to reduce the number of steps that it takes to produce your document, your layout. The templates you design are going to employ the smartest production strategies and will avoid manual labor wherever that's possible. At times, you probably might not be able to find a better or a faster way to produce your particular layout. That's fine. Just consider modifying the design, and if it's possible, just make it easier to create your template. Sometimes all it actually takes is just changing that one particular element, and that can drastically speed up production. Now, always design your template so it's easy to use. The best templates are put together with a variety of individual tools and technologies that help you create a clear page production experience. They're well thought of, and they're organized really well, and they're highly intuitive. any designer should be able to start a new document based on the template you've created and then be able to begin working on this without having to first overcome a steep learning curve. Always look for ways to make your template easier to use. Now, for example, use clear, concise, and consistent naming conventions for your templates. And try to avoid creating too many style sheets, too many color swatches, too many layers, and master pages. This can become very, very confusing. And the template is going to become cumbersome, and designers are going to find it very hard to come and find what they're after. And it also helps to create a high-quality style guide that specifies exactly how to use your template. So any reference to this later on will become a lot more easier. And always employ good production practices. Now, a poorly constructed template is no doubt going to lead to sloppy results. Now, users will tend to utilize the most convenient method that's available to them. And most page designers would rather use what you provided to them as their starting point, instead of being able to recreate the layout all themselves. Even if it means they have to work a little bit harder to produce the publication, it will be well worth it. And in other words, the way you construct the individual elements of your template is going to determine how others will produce a publication that's based on it. So it's very important that you employ a good production practice when you're making your templates. And anyone using your template should be productive with it, and they should be able to avoid any printing issues and any other costly mistakes. Continuously test and always explore other solutions. When you're constructing your template, it's always best to test your work as you're going along. Although you're going to be conducting a final test once you complete your template, but don't always wait until the very end to examine your work. You could then miss out on a valuable opportunity to improve each solution as you're building it. Testing, it's very good because it will give you a first-hand experience of what it's going to be like to produce a document with your template. As you test, always decide where improvements can be made and explore the other solutions and options that are available out there for you. You'll find that testing will really help transform the solutions you've come up with into a much better solution, and you'll get much productive results with it. Experienced designers always spend significant time, fine-tuning their templates, because they know their hard works at that point are going to save you a lot of time later on, and just the final appearance of your publication is going to look very neat, and it's going to be very consistent, and you'll be able to create your own house style. And finally, let's talk about whether you should choose a flexible or a rigid style for your template. So we ask ourselves a question: how rigid or flexible should your template be? Now, the answer to this question really depends on your specific workflow and your design requirements, just because every publication is so different. Flexible templates are structured to serve a variety of design choices. They don't really lock you into one particular format, yet they can still save you a lot of setup time. So for example, if you're creating a template for a publication that allows for a lot of creative freedom, you might then want to set up the template with just 1 or 2 master pages, a simple layout grid, and a few style sheets. These kind of templates can save a lot of layout and revision time, while still giving your document a consistent design and plenty of creative flexibility. Now, rigid templates, on the other hand, are precisely constructed to reproduce a predictable and a consistent layout, for example, a letters page. They're always going to contain highly structured master pages, a well-defined grid system, and an assortment of style sheets. These kind of templates are the most productive ones because these are the ones that are going to significantly reduce and, if not, eliminate redundant tasks. So pages that you put together, like the letters page, you will avoid applying the same content over and over again. And also they require the most forethought and planning, and they're certainly more difficult to construct. But that's not to say that they're not possible. In many situations, your template is going to lie somewhere in both extremities. So it should be flexible enough to accommodate several design variations, but be rigid enough to be able to automate redundant formatting wherever the layout will follow a predictable pattern. If you feel like you build multiple documents with the same configuration, the same kind of, and the content remains pretty much the same time after time, it's a very good idea to start really thinking about working with templates. So what can we take away from the benefits that we mentioned today? Or of a templated workflow, I should really say. If you follow a templated approach, it means that you'll be more consistent and more productive with your templates, and that in turn will make you much more profitable. And that ends it with we've pretty much covered the principles that we had.
Fab. That was really, really helpful, Nada. There's just so much to it. I feel like you could probably go on for days going into all the detail and all the things that people need to consider when they're putting templates into place. But we have got some questions. We've got perfect amount of time, so we will go through some of these, but if there are any questions we don't get to, if we don't get to your question, we will contact you after the webinar and come back to you with some helpful tips, hopefully. So let's go to the first question. Okay, so we're considering creating templates. What would you recommend as being our first step?
Well, you need to consider what kind of a workflow you have, and do you create publications which pretty much look the same through and throughout, or do you have publications that look entirely different week on week? And also, what's the duration? Are you creating, is it like a newspaper that you're creating that's a daily newspaper, or is it a weekly, or is it a magazine that only gets published monthly? Depending on how frequent it is, will be dependent on how many templates you need to begin with. So if it's a daily thing, I would say start off with a good set of templates, and then once you use those templates, you'll get a feel for what other templates you need, what you're missing, and then after you've done and also it goes back to the point that we mentioned where you should be thoroughly testing your templates. The whole point of doing your testing is before you even use your template to produce your paper or produce your publication, it's going to give you an idea of, I need to take a step back, I need to change this, I need to modify this, or perhaps, oh, I'm really missing a template that covers the letters to the editor page, I need to go back and create this, or I just need to change a single element on there. So I think it really depends on your workflow, to be honest. But I would definitely say to start off with a good handful of templates that you can pick and choose from, and you can always modify thereafter.
Okay, great. So there is definitely a lot to be considered, but it sounds like it's very much down to how they're working already. So perhaps the person that asked that question, we can get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with us, and we might be able to have a more detailed discussion based on what your workflow is at the moment. So let's have a look. Another question here. So how many templates should a publisher have on file?
Well, it's quite an again, it's quite an open question here. I guess it depends. Again, it's pretty much similar to the question we just had. I would say to start off with, if it's a weekly publication, start off with, I would say at least in past experience, I would say 10, 15 would be a good number to start with. And again, this is going to be plus or minus depending on your publication. But again, this is it goes back to the point of your workflow, the duration, and how often you're creating your pages and your publication. It all depends on that. But definitely, the more you get done initially, the more time you're going to save after. So by all means, create templates for all the layouts that you have in mind, because once you start using them, you can actually eliminate the ones which you feel aren't necessary. It's always good to have enough to begin with, so you're not left with, oh, well, actually I need to go back and create this one. Always have a good number to start with. I always say it's always better to start with more than less.
Okay, very helpful. But again, as you say, it's probably more based on what and how many and what they're going to need them for. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, every publication is going to be different, so it's going to be down to your own particular publication. And sometimes it's down to whoever's creating it, and based on their opinion, how many they feel is necessary at that particular moment in time.
Okay. Fab. So a question here which I can answer. Will we get the slides? Yes, you will. We will share a copy of the slides and a recording of the webinar in the next, probably tomorrow. And if anyone wants anything further, by all means come back to me and I can get some more stuff out. And we have one final question here. Okay, this is about our customers. So what return on investment have your customers seen by utilizing templates?
Well, the results pretty much speak for themselves. We've had customers that have come back and told us, this is great, it's saving us a lot of time. We can, afford to put the time that we would spend on creating the same type of layout over and over again, we can put that time towards, maybe a different project. Maybe we can put those people on a completely different project and be able to focus our energies on something that's coming to a deadline or a pressing issue. We can put our focus on that. So it definitely helps save a lot of time, and it helps keep your publication consistent. So you are then able to create it helps create brand consistency. You're not the 1 week creating, you're not 1 week creating something that looks entirely different the next week. It's very consistent. I mean, you can go ahead and apply modifications here and there, but it really helps keep you consistent, and there's nothing stopping you from making a modification, over time. But those are the kind of benefits that they've seen, I would say, based on. I mean, there are quite a few, but again, it all depends on the workflow and their particular publication.
Yeah, and I guess where they start from as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, so we have one last question that I can see here. So what elements should a good template contain?
I would say now if you've got a layout which remains pretty consistent, I would say to have your page furniture must be, you need to ensure that that's on the page. So you need to establish the content that's going to be there time and time after. You need to make sure that's in its place and it's there to begin with, and then anything else you can go ahead and apply to after. And I guess, yeah, it's just making sure that, again, it depends. Again, it's going back to how flexible or rigid your template is going to be. If it's for a publication that pretty much is consistent, you definitely need to have templates put forward with the page furniture there. But if it's a publication which is only like a monthly publication and you have various different pages every time, just stick with a very, very basic layout. Then it will allow your users to be creative with the end layout. So again, it depends on your publication, and just like what Hannah said, it depends where you're beginning from and where you're starting from.
That is fab. So I hope we haven't got any more questions now. So I hope everyone who has asked a question we've answered in the best way we can. But if you think of anything after this, that's fine. Feel free to contact us and we can go through that. Also, as we say, we've sort of established here is that templates are great, but they are very much sort of based around what the starting point and what's needed and what it's needed for. So if anyone wants to sort of chat to us afterwards, they want us to get one of our experts to come and sort of have a look at your workflow and what we can do, by all means get in touch and we can do some sort of a consultation for you. That wouldn't be a problem. So if I would just like to then say thank you very much, Nada. Really, really found that very interesting, and I actually think we could probably make a few webinars out of even more of the detail that we've not really been able to cover today. And for everyone else that came along, thank you for joining us. Next week we have one on how to empower your team, how to keep people motivated, engaged, and actually wanting to stay. So that will be this time next week. So please register for that if you haven't already, and that will be with myself and Rich, one of our other editorial product specialists. So once again, thank you very much, Nada. That was really, really interesting, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and thank you to everybody that joined us today. Thank you.